Hey everyone, this week we are doing a reading comprehension from our reading zone. Now I know you didn't bring your reading zone home, so I've taken a photo of the story and a photo of the questions, and you'll be able to find that on Seesaw and on the website. Okay, the story we are reading is on page 84 and it's called The Dreamer. But before we start to read it, I have a few key words that I want to run through before we read the story so that we know what we're reading. Okay, first word, wealthy. So if someone is wealthy, it means they have a lot of money, a lot of possessions, and that they're well off. Okay, they've got the money, they're not worried about financial issues. Okay, so if you're wealthy, you have money. Manage. Now there's a lot of different ways we can use the word manage. You could be managing a company or you could manage a football team, but in this context we are talking about to be able to manage to do something. So if you're ever doing a lesson, some teacher might ask, oh, can you manage those questions? Okay, it just means are you able to do it? So if you said I can manage them, it just means I'm able to do it. So this type of manage means to be able to do something. Briars. Now there's a lot of briars around where I live and you'll find them on country roads a lot. Briars are sharp little, not really plants necessarily, but you'd find them around shrubs and different things, and they're like a long branch of a tree, except they're very thin and they're in shrubs and they have really sharp thorns in them. I'm sure you've all seen briars or unfortunately gotten stung by them in the past, as I have done. So they're kind of sharp little branches off of shrubs, briars. A daydream is like when you're maybe in class or you're somewhere boring, and instead of focusing on what you're doing there, you just daydream. So you're not asleep, but you're looking out the window and you're kind of dreaming about a different world or a different life and different things like that. Reckoned. So if you reckon something, it just means you think something. It's another word for I think. I reckon. I reckoned that it would rain yesterday, but it didn't. So I thought. Produce. So this word could be to produce something, but here it is produce. So the produce is the things that something creates. So for example, cow produce would be milk, meat, and pig produce would be like bacon and rashers and things like that. Expensive, if something's expensive, it costs a lot of money. And pampered then. So if you live a pampered life, you don't have to do any work, everyone looks after you, you're waited on hand and foot, and you have everything done for you. So if you live a very pampered life, it's a life without any worries and where all the work's done for you. So it's a very nice life. So all those words are going to come up in our story. Let's have a read of it now. So page 84, you can follow this on the Seesaw while I read aloud if you'd like. The Dreamer. Amy was a dreamer. She loved to dream about ways of changing her life. Her biggest wish was to be wealthy and to be able to buy lots of computer games without having to save for them. For many months now, she had been thinking long and hard about how she could make this happen. One day, she came up with a plan. Amy's aunt kept hens. If I help you collect the eggs in the mornings, could I keep some of them? She asked her aunt. Of course, Amy, her aunt replied. We never manage to use all the eggs those hens lay. Within 2 days, Amy had managed to gather a dozen eggs for herself. She thanked her aunt, placed the eggs in a basket, and headed for home. On her way, she stopped to pick blackberries from the briars that grew in the ditch. She put the baskets of eggs carefully in the ditch and began to eat the blackberries. As she was eating them, she started to daydream about her clever plan. If all the eggs hatched, she would have 12 chickens. She could take care of them, and when they grew up, they would lay eggs for her. She could sell the eggs, and if she saved very hard, she might have enough money to buy a cow. Then she would also have milk to sell. I could make cheese with the milk, Amy thought. Then I could get my own stall at the farmer's market in town and sell eggs, milk, and homemade cheese. Amy reckoned if she worked hard enough and sold enough produce, she should soon be able to buy a small field and have a small house built on it. She would sell the house, make enough money to buy more land and build more houses. Then she could sell or rent the houses. Amy could feel herself getting excited as the ideas came rushing into her head. One thought was being replaced very quickly by another. Horses, she thought. I'd be able to buy horses with all that money, and maybe set up a riding school and have lots of people working for me. Oh, what wonderful dreams she was having. Amy then came to a conclusion. If she had enough people working for her, she wouldn't have to do the work herself. How wonderful, she thought. She could buy an expensive house with a games room, tennis courts, stables, and a swimming pool. She would not have to go to school anymore. She could spend her days swimming, playing tennis, and riding her horses. Her friends would all come to her fine house and play computer games all day long. She would never have to make her bed or do any chores ever again because her servants would do everything she told them to do. Amy's life was really starting to look wonderful. She could have all the riches she dreamed about and live the pampered life she so wanted. Feeling tired as a result of all her thinking and dreaming, Amy decided to sit down in the ditch and rest before finishing her walk home. As she went to sit down, she never looked behind her. What did she end up sitting on? The basket of eggs! Amy's dreams had brought her so far into the future that she had forgotten about the eggs, which were in the present. They were all smashed. Oh no, Amy cried. Her eggs and dreams lay in pieces on the side of the road. Now, I think that's a brilliant story, and there is a very clear message to that story. What do you think the message of that story is? Maybe pause the video there and see if you can come up with one, because I'm gonna tell you what I think anyway. So I'm thinking of the famous phrase, don't count your chickens before they hatch, which means that you shouldn't be banking on things to happen that haven't really happened yet. So for example, it's like if you had a maths test at the end of the week and you just thought, oh, I'm going to get an A, I'm going to get an A, Mom said she'd bring me to McDonald's. But you shouldn't be counting any chickens, you shouldn't be assuming that you're going to McDonald's on the Friday, because you need to get your A in the maths test first. Okay? So not counting your chickens before you hatch essentially just means don't assume things are going to be a certain way in the future when things haven't happened before that. Okay? So as you can see, Amy was getting a little bit carried away with herself. She was thinking of all the way down the future, how she'd do this job and that would lead to this and lead to this and that would lead to the amazing mansion. But she forgot to focus on what the here and now, and that led to the eggs getting smashed. And when the eggs are smashed, now she can't save up the chickens, now she can't sell the chickens to get the cow, can't sell the cow to get the horse, and so on. So you have to look to the present and the future will take care of itself. Now I think that's a very interesting story. I've set you some questions I'd like you to try, and you'll find those on the website and on Seesaw, and I think you'll be well able for them. So best of luck, and I'll talk to you all again soon.